Today we're reading chapters 4, 5, and 6 of Blood on the River by Elisa Carbone. Chapter 4. The epigraph reads, "Travel south until your butter melts, then turn right." And this is an old British mariner's axiom, how to get to the New World. So this is just a joke, but it's a little bit true because if we look at the map, that they're sailing from Plymouth, England, south, close to the equator. So it's going to be getting warm. Your butter's probably going to be melted because it's hot down here. And then, so travel south until your butter starts to melt, then turn right. And that's kind of what they did, even though that's really just a joke. February 1607. So he's been on the ship for 2 months. My soul nearly left my body last night. I felt it, slippery and shimmery inside the shell of my body, trying to slide out through the top of my head. But Reverend Hunt came and laid his hands on my brow to keep my soul from leaving and prayed for me to recover. And so today my fever has broken and I am still in my body, still aboard the Susan Constant, bound for the New World. We are finally sailing. I feel the speed of the ship under me. We have left England's waters and we're heading south toward the Canary Islands off of the coast of Africa. Captain Newport says our route will be like a big circle, following the winds and currents. We'll sail south to the Canaries, then west to the West Indies, then north to Virginia. To go back to England, if I ever do, we will sail still farther north and then east to England to finish the circle. Captain Newport says the fevers gripped us because we stayed so long in the fog and cold of England's winter. Now it's warmer every day. If my soul had gone out of my body, I'd have left the rolling of the ship, the stench in the closed-up 'tween deck, the rats that sometimes scuttle over my face in the night. I'd have left this living shoulder to shoulder with a crowd of gentlemen, each of them thinking he's better than the rest, and all of them thinking they are much better than I. But I'd also left the chance to see the islands and, beyond them, Virginia. I'd have left my chance to dig for gold. So if it hadn't been for Reverend Hunt and his big, meaty, soul-blocking hands, last night I would have joined my mother in heaven or my father in hell and missed the whole exciting adventure of it. I pull on my slops and tie them at my knees and at my waist. I'm so skinny now they nearly fall off of me. How long was I ill? 10 days? 2 weeks? I wobble on unsteady legs. Air. That's what I need. Fresh air. Someone throws open the hatch. This is my chance. I pick up a slop bucket. My ticket to the ship's deck. I start up the ladder, carrying the slop bucket carefully. I glance down into it, human waste and vomit sloshing together. Bad idea. I feel woozy, almost lose my balance. Look up, I tell myself, and I do. And in a moment, my head is out of the hatch opening, and I'm looking at a violet blue sky with wispy pink clouds. Sunrise at sea. "Look what the cat dragged in," a sailor calls. He's pulling on a thick line and looking down at me from the foredeck. "Haven't seen this one in weeks. Thought maybe he'd died." "Stinks bad enough down there," says another sailor. "Could be a few dead ones lying behind the ale barrels and no one would even know." The sailors laugh, but I don't care. I stand, breathing in the clear, fresh air. I go to the railing, throw the contents of the bucket overboard, then stop in utter astonishment. The ocean, which was just a few weeks ago in England, was its usual black green, had completely changed. I am looking at an ocean so clear and so blue that when a long silver fish comes to inspect what I've just tossed in, I can see the yellow stripes on his back. I linger, feeling the wind on my face. The sails are bellied out orange gold in the early morning sunlight. I feel very glad that I did not leave this adventure last night. "Below with you now," a sailor yells to me. "You'll be getting underfoot up here." I want to tell him I'm waiting for the mess pots for the servants, the one James and Richard and I share with the two men who serve Master Wingfield, but I'm not sure I can make it down the ladder with the heavy pot of oatmeal. I'll wait until I'm stronger before I do that chore. Captain Newport comes strutting toward me. He has a scowl on his face, and I'm afraid he's about to whip me for loitering on deck. I scramble down the ladder, bucket in hand. Captain Newport follows me. He swings down the ladder easily, even with only one arm. I head to a dark corner of the 'tween deck, hoping he won't see me. But it's not me he's after. "Smith." Captain Newport's baritone voice fills the 'tween deck. Two burly sailors come down the ladder and stand on either side of him. "Sir," Captain Smith responds and stands straight and strong. Captain Newport looks angry, though I'm not sure it's Captain Smith he's angry with. "By my authority and captain of this fleet, I hereby place you under arrest." Captain Smith frowns. "On what charges?" he demands. He stares right at Master Wingfield as he says it, so I suspect he knows who has accused him of a crime. Captain Newport glances at Master Wingfield with a look of disgust. "I will present the charges," says Master Wingfield. Somehow, despite the fact we've been at sea for nearly 2 months, his silk doublet and red velvet breeches still look relatively fresh. "You are under arrest for intent to overthrow the government of this mission, murder the council members, and make yourself ruler." My mouth drops open. "Wingfield, you are a liar," Captain Smith growls. "And you, sir, will be hanged when we reach the West Indies," Master Wingfield says coldly. Captain Smith sputters, but no words come to him. His face and neck are red as fire. He reels back. I see his fists ball up. He's about to throw a punch. "Yes!" I want to shout. "Smash his face in. This will be even better than watching boys or drunken sailors slug it out. I want to see blood spurt out of Master Wingfield's high-ranking nose." But in the split second before Captain Smith lets loose with his fist, it is as if something reins him in. He hunches his shoulders, opens and closes his hand, takes a deep breath. Then he turns to Captain Newport and speaks almost calmly. "Captain, do you believe these charges which have been brought against me?" he asks. Captain Newport looks startled, as if he didn't expect this question. "I cannot leave a suspected traitor unshackled," he says. "And what if I accuse Master Wingfield of being a traitor?" Captain Smith asks. "After all, it was he who wanted to turn back when we were stranded all those weeks at the Downs. It is he and his gentleman friends who want to go back to England, to their comforts, every time there's a storm." He says the word "gentleman" as if it is a pile of sheep dung in the kitchen, and this makes me smile. This is how they treat their signed 7-year contracts with the Virginia Company. "You have no right to accuse me," Master Wingfield shouts. "You are a commoner. You cannot level charges against your betters." "My betters?" Captain Smith raises his eyebrows. "A pig has more royal blood than you do." The sound Master Wingfield makes next is a cross between a growl and a shout. Insulting his bloodline is like throwing lye in his face. He draws a dagger and comes at Captain Smith. For a moment, all is confusion. Reverend Hunt catches Master Wingfield's arm, and the two sailors step between the angry men, and Captain Newport's voice booms out. "Release your weapon. Let the law handle this." Then he orders the sailors, "Nelson Poole, put Smith in irons." The two sailors hustle Captain Smith over to the chain bolts that stand ready, fastened to the wall of the 'tween deck, waiting to restrain a prisoner or any drunken sailor who has started a fist fight. They clamp Captain Smith's ankles and wrists into the chains. I can't believe Captain Newport is doing this. Now Master Wingfield will simply walk over and slit his throat. But when I look back at Master Wingfield, I see he is pale and shaken. He has dropped his dagger and is wiping his face with his handkerchief. Reverend Hunt has his hand on his shoulder and is talking to him quietly. Master Wingfield might be a liar, but he's no murderer. Still, I have heard the gentlemen whispering. In the close quarters of the 'tween deck, it's hard to miss much. They say Captain Smith is only an ignorant commoner, yet he wants the power of a noble. They say he will try to take over the whole mission if he is not disposed of. They say if it were not Captain Smith's insisting that they stay the course, they would be back in their comfortable homes in England by now. And I wonder how long it will be before someone else, someone who does have the heart of a murderer, slits Captain Smith's throat while he sleeps. Chapter 5. The epigraph reads, "We anchored at Dominico, a very fair island, inhabited by many savage Indians. They are continually in wars, and will eat their enemies when they kill them, or any stranger if they take them." This is Master George Percy from his journal Observations. Every sound wakes me. I crane my neck. Is this the night someone will murder Captain Smith? But each time it is only one of the men groaning in his sleep, or the retching of one of the poor souls who has not yet gotten over the seasickness. And so Captain Smith is still alive. We anchor at one of the Canary Islands, Gran Canaria. I steal a chance to go on deck and have my first sight of land in many weeks. Huge gray mountains, steep and rocky, rise up into the clouds. A few of the sailors go ashore in the longboats to fill our barrels with fresh water, and then we were on our way, riding the trade winds west toward the West Indies in the Caribbean. Captain Smith is still in chains, though they have freed his wrists and only his ankles remain shackled. When I bring him his morning wash water, he is writing. I glance at the page, then quickly look away. I don't want to be caught being nosy. He washes his face, takes off his shirt, and washes under his arms. I hand him a cloth to dry with. When he's dressed again, he looks at me hard. "Reverend Hunt says you can read," he says. It is a cross between a question and a statement. I nod my answer. "He tells me your mother taught you, but your mother was a commoner, a peasant, correct?" "Yes, sir." "Can you tell me how it is she learned to read?" he asks. "She was taught by a friend, sir. It was the son of our gentleman landlord." I don't tell him that he also gave her the silver locket when she turned 13, or how, when their friendship was discovered, he was sent away to France. "I see," he says, and goes back to his writing. I wonder how Captain Smith can be so peaceful while he is locked up. Like this. Since the moment when he nearly punched Master Wingfield, the moment when he reined in his anger, Captain Smith has been calm. That first day he had me bring him his paper, quill, and ink. "When Julius Caesar was put in prison, he wrote," he said, "so I shall do the same." He has been writing ever since, the story of our journey. As he writes and remains calm, the whisperings have changed. Now they say that Master Wingfield and some of the other gentlemen made up those charges. They say those gentlemen hate Captain Smith because he's a commoner who has no special respect for nobles. They say you can't hang a man just because he doesn't respect you. In a strange way, even though he is still a prisoner, Captain Smith seems to be winning the battle. James and Richard come down the ladder talking the whole way. Richard is carrying the oatmeal pot for our mess, and James has a slop bucket he just emptied. Captain Smith doesn't need me anymore, so I hurry toward the steaming pot of oatmeal. I have to eat fast to get enough. We servants are always served last when the food is running out, and Master Wingfield's servants, Henry and Abram, are big, greedy men who empty our mess pot in 2 gulps if we boys don't get a head start. I grab my spoon and dig in. Yeah, that's what he said, Richard is saying. They don't wear any clothes at all. They just paint themselves different colors instead. The sailor said he heard it from a French sailor who's already been to the New World. What else? James asks. That the women make cuts and burns on their faces and bodies to make pictures on them? That they put colored dyes in the cuts and burns? They think it makes them look beautiful. I snicker and nearly spit out my oatmeal. Richard gives me an annoyed glance. He said that the men have hair a yard long on one side of their head, and the hair is shaved close on the other, he says, and they decorate their hair. One of their favorite decorations is they cut off the hand of one of their enemies and dry it in the sun, and then tie the dried hand into their hair. Henry and Abram join us. Henry is broad and fleshy and always enjoys an opportunity to smack one of us boys. Abram has the hair the color of carrots and one eye that wanders everywhere, except he's looking. When they sit down to eat, James and Richard are silent for a while as they shovel oatmeal into their mouths. There's a plate with 5 chunks of moldy cheese on it. I go to grab the largest chunk, but Henry slaps my hand away and takes it for himself. I want to slap him back, but he is 3 times my size and could easily throw me against the wall with one swipe of his arm. I grab a smaller piece of cheese and stuff it into my mouth, green mold and all. They also said there will be Carib Indians on the islands of the West Indies, Richard continues. They said the Caribs chop people up for their cook pots and eat them. Now James looks pale and terrified. Henry snorts. Don't worry, lad. They won't want you. You're too skinny and snotty for their taste. He slaps James on the back, hard enough to hurt. Then he and Abram go off to their card game with the other common men. What else did you hear? I mock Richard in a sing-song voice. I can hardly believe he's so gullible that the sailors are able to fool him like this. It's true, you know. Richard glares at me. I heard the sailors talking. I heard it all with my own ears. James nods, his eyes wide and scared. You are dunces. Both of you believe in that rot, I say. Don't you think the sailors knew you were listening? Don't you think they're right up there right now laughing their heads off about that stupid boy who was eavesdropping and believed all of their lies? Richard and James exchange a look. You think they were lying, Samuel? James asks me hopefully. I think you're an idiot, I say. Those sailors are playing games with you. They're almost as bored up there as we are down here. I'll look at Richard. Do you really think a woman would make cuts and burns into her face to make her look beautiful? Richard frowns and shakes his head. Then stop talking about it, I say. Moments later, we all hear the call, Land ho! Richard grabs the empty oatmeal pot, but I yank it out of his hands. Hey, that's my job, he shouts. I brought it down. It's my job now, I say. I run to the ladder with the pot. No way I'm going to let this chance slip by. Up on deck, I squint into the dazzling sun. The sails billow bright white against a blue sky. The breeze is warm. I go to the railing and search the horizon. There it is, A green bump in the distance, in the midst of the jewel-blue sea, the first of the Caribbean islands. I give the pot to the cook and linger, breathing in the sweet air, marveling at the brightness of it all. Richard comes up on deck, and James too, and several of the gentlemen, until the first mate calls a halt. He drives us all back down below, threatening to beat us boys with an oar if we don't hurry. The 'tween deck is abuzz with gentlemen and commoners both, wondering what this land sighting means. Will we finally be allowed off this stinking ship? They'd better at least get fresh water. What we have left smells like a sick dog. I want fresh meat. I will demand that I be let off to hunt. When the shouting begins up on deck, we fall silent. God save us! They're coming! Look at them! They're monsters! Captain Newport, permission to man the guns, sir. James and Richard both look at me as if I have the answers. I decide I'd rather be beaten with an oar than sit down in the dark 'tween deck waiting to be devoured by sea monsters. I'll scramble up the ladder to deck. We're in shallow water now, and the sea is translucent blue. Moving swiftly across this crystal water are several canoes, and the canoes are the very creatures conjured up by Richard's stories. They're naked, their skin painted red. The women's faces and arms are tattooed with patterns. The men's hair is long with beads and bones, human bones, hanging in direct decoration. They are coming quickly towards our ships. I catch my breath. I expect to hear the scrape of cannons being loaded, but instead I hear Captain Newport's voice. We are not Spanish barbarians. We will not slaughter these people unless they attack first. Get Smith, now. Two sailors swing down into the 'tween deck, and there's the clanking of chains as they unlock Captain Smith's irons. Captain Smith emerges from the 'tween deck. He stands on the deck watching the approaching canoes. His back is straight, his chest puffed out. He does not look afraid, only determined. A tall man stands up in one of the canoes. He's naked except for a ring of bones around his neck. He raises his hand. Captain Smith does the same. Captain Smith begins speaking strange words and using hand motions to communicate. I easily understand the hand motions. We have come in peace, hand over his heart. We desire trade. He dangles several strings of sparkling beads. We need food. He rubs his stomach. The man in the canoe stoops and picks up something that looks like a very large pine cone with spiky green shoots coming out of one end. He pretends to take a bite out of it. I breathe a sigh of relief. He has understood. All afternoon, the natives come back and forth to our ships in their canoes, bringing sweet-smelling fruits and other food from their island, which sits green and lush nearby. The large pine cone with spiky leaves turns out to be called a pineapple, and it tastes like food for a king. The cook names the other things they bring: mangoes, papayas, plantains, potatoes, tobacco. In return, we give them knives and hatchets, beads and copper, and they are happy. I have seen that Captain Smith's ankles are raw from the rubbing of the irons. That evening, I ask the cook for some tallow and bring it to him. Tallow is fat. Are you a free man, sir? I ask. I seem to be for now, he says. He grimaces as he rubs in the tallow. The sores on his ankles are cracked and oozing. Quietly, I ask, how did you know the language of those natives? He smiles. Every man speaks the language of greeting, of trade, of hunger. I spoke with my hands. I nod. But the words? He shakes his head and whispers, those are Algonquian words, a language spoken in Virginia by the natives there. Roanoke settlers brought back word lists, and I have studied them. Let Newport and the others think they need me as a translator in these islands. It's too hot for these chains. I have one more question, but I'm not sure if I want to know the answer. I take a deep breath and blurt it out. Do the Carib Indians chop people up for their cook pots and eat them? He stops rubbing his ankle for a moment and looks at me. Only if they catch them, he says. Chapter 6. The epigraph reads, Whilst we remained at this island, we saw a whale chased by a thresher and a swordfish. They fought for the space of 2 hours. We might see the thresher with his flail lay on the monstrous blows, which was strange to behold. In the end, these 2 fishes brought the whale to her end. This is from Master George Percy from his journal Observations again. So while they're at the island, they saw a whale chased by a thresher and a swordfish. And you know how big a whale is. A thresher and swordfish, they're smaller fish. They fought for 2 hours. The thresher and the swordfish attacked this whale for 2 hours, and finally, the 2 fish overpowered the whale and killed her. Just for food. You gotta eat or be eaten, I guess, in the ocean. Chapter 6. These islands are strung together much like beads on a necklace. When we sail past one, in half a day we catch sight of another. I sneak up on deck so often that my back is sore from being smacked with that oar. But the sky and water are so blue, and everything is so new, I keep coming up anyway. It is hot. We boys and common men abandoned our shoes, stockings, doublets, and slops weeks ago. Now even the gentlemen go around with their white knobby knees peeking out from their long shirt tails. We anchor near the island of Guadalupe, and Captain Newport takes several men ashore to explore. While the boats are being anchored, we passengers are allowed up on deck, so I stand at the railing to watch the long boats glide through the water, clear as turquoise glass. A strong hand closes in on my arm, and I startle. It is Captain Smith. Look, he says, pointing. A huge black form comes racing through the sea. Close behind it are 2 smaller forms. It's a type of whale, the biggest fish in the sea, Captain Smith says. Then he smiles strangely. It is being chased. The 3 fish appear behind the Discovery, then reappear on the other side. What would chase a whale? I ask. Looks like a swordfish and a thresher shark, says Captain Smith. We will see who wins. The whale surfaces and spurts out a spray of air and water. In that moment, the thresher rears up its tail and lands a tremendous blow on the whale's snout. The whale is stunned. He tries to escape, but the swordfish swims in to cut him. Bright red blood swirls into the clear water. The thresher lands another harsh blow, and another. The whale becomes confused, swims in circles. The swordfish darts in and out, cutting and slicing. Soon the once blue water is murky with blood. As the whale slows, the thresher deals more slamming blows, and the swordfish cuts again and again. Finally, the whale rises to the surface, spurts a stream of spray one more time, then rolls over, belly skyward. Captain Smith has a satisfied look on his face, as if his regiment had just won a battle. You see how it is when you've left the confines of England? He asks me. You might have been born the biggest fish in the sea, but the skill and perseverance of those lower born can take you down and destroy you. Somehow I know he's talking about Master Wingfield, the biggest fish in the sea. I glance around to see who else has heard. I see Master Clovel glaring at us, and I wonder how long Captain Smith will remain unshackled if he keeps talking this way about the gentleman. Land ho! I hear the familiar shout. It must be another island, but then I hear more. Is this where we'll drop anchor, Captain, and take all the men on shore? Yes, have the boatswain ready the longboat. I run up on deck. They'll be too busy now to catch me. This day is a rare, overcast one, and the sails reflect the gray of the sky. The Susan Constant turns, sailors rush to pull on lines, and we are on our way, gliding into shore. And as we get closer, I see the tall trees. They've got huge green leaves at their tops, and their trunks and their bare trunks curve upward like fingers reaching for the sky. I see a bright green and yellow bird fly from one treetop to another. Land. I wonder if I'll remember how to walk on it. Fetch the tents, lower the longboat, men, gather your belongings. We are going ashore. I gladly, very gladly, help load bedding, tents, pots, and pans onto the longboat to be taken ashore. The Godspeed and Discovery anchor nearby as well, and their men unload. This will be the first time since we left England that all of us, all 105 of us men and boys who are passengers, and 3 crews of sailors, will be together in one place. There are probably Carib Indians on the island, Captain Newport tells us, but we will give them beads, and our soldiers will stand guard at night, and we'll be safe. I'm one of the last to go ashore. When I finally land on the white sand, it feels as if it is moving under me. I laugh out loud. More than 3 months on a ship has confused my legs so much that solid land feels like a rocking deck. Samuel, look, we're Carib Indians, James calls to me. He and Richard have taken off their shirts and they're running naked through the water, splashing each other. I've been waiting for James or Richard or both to tell me how I was wrong and they were right about the Caribs, but neither of them has. I have been on my guard, ready to rough them up if they say one word about it. Are they taunting me now, showing me what naked Caribs look like, telling me I was wrong not to believe them? Come on, Samuel. James stands in knee, waist-deep water, dripping wet. His skin is peaked pale, and his fair hair is plastered against his head. It's salty, he says, and licks some water from his hand. It's fun. Come swim with us. I blink at him. No taunting? No insisting they were right and I was wrong? No hating me for how badly I have treated him and Richard this whole journey? I wonder if James can really be this forgiving, or if he is simply so happy to be off that stinking ship he has forgotten the past. Come on, you prig, calls Richard. You need a good delousing. That makes me mad. You're the one who brought the lice onto the ship, I shout. I yank off my shirt and charge into the water. I splash Richard in the face until he begs for breath. When I stop, he's gasping. He smiles a little, as if he wants to pretend it was fun, but I know it was not. My eyes dare him to try and splash me back, or insult me again. I know he will not. He doesn't want to lose another tooth. Stop, you two, James whines. Look at the fish. He tries his best to distract Richard and me from our quarrel. I feel tickling on my legs. When I look down into the clear water, I see the small blue and yellow fish nibbling on me. The water is warm, so much warmer than the Thames. I want to live here forever, says James. I'd never go back to my stepmom ever. She would think I died, and that would make her happy. I want to stay here too, says Richard. I wouldn't be cold ever again. I shake my head. I still want to go to Virginia, I say. There's a sack of gold waiting for me. Maybe 10 sacks. Reverend Hunt calls us from shore. Boys, come here. Put your shirts on. The sun will burn your skin. I wish we didn't have to leave the water, but we do what Reverend Hunt says. Disobeying him would be like disobeying God. When we get to the shore, he is holding our shirts and 3 wide-brimmed straw hats. The sun here is like 10 English suns. You put these on. Reverend Hunt waits while we pull our shirts over our heads and tie down the hat strings under our chins. Now, he says, there is work to be done. There are tents to be set up, the cook wants all the pots scrubbed with sand, and Captain Ratcliffe wants a path cut to the baths. They found hot baths in the forest, and he says the gentleman can't be tromping through the underbrush to get to them. Captain Ratcliffe, of the beady eyes and pointed nose, Captain Smith grumbles that he doesn't see why the gentleman can't walk through the forest like anyone else, but Captain Ratcliffe has the power to give orders, not Captain Smith. When we join the others, I see the older boy, Nathaniel. He's holding a hatchet. He must be on his way to help clear the path. I don't want to scrub pots like a woman, so I hurry to get one of the hatchets too. I swing it a few times to feel its weight and power. I want to do a man's job. Henry, Abram, Nathaniel, and several of the sailors start toward the forest with their hatchets. I follow them. What do we have here? Henry turns to look at me, then stops to block my way. A scrawny chicken coming to work with the men? I don't answer. I don't want to say I wouldn't be so scrawny if he'd leave more of the food for me. I try to skirt around him and continue on my way, but he puts one powerful arm to stop me. Go back and scrub pots with the other boys, he growls. You'll only get in the way. He yanks the hatchet out of my hands and cuffs me. I glare at him silently as he turns and walks after the others. What is he going to do with 2 hatchets? I hope he chops himself in the leg. Reluctantly, I go find the cook. He's already hovering over Richard and James, showing them how to scoop up a handful of sand with a rag and use it to scrub out the mess pots. They haven't had a really good cleaning in 3 months, so the sand has some hard work to do. I join them, toiling under the hot sun until sweat drips from my face. I wish I could be back playing in the salty sea, or swinging a hatchet in the shade of the forest. Suddenly, a scream comes from the forest, a man's scream of pain. Soon there's another cry, and then such shouting and shrieking. It turns my blood cold. I remember Captain Smith's answer when I asked if the Caribs chop people up for the cook pot. Only if they catch them. The path cutters, I shout. It's coming from that direction. Gentlemen and soldiers grab their weapons and hurry toward the terrible sound. James and Richard huddle together behind the largest cook pot. I spot a sword and belt someone has left lying in the sand. Quickly, I try to fasten the belt around me. It's too big. I pull the sword out of its sheath, and with the bare sword, I run toward the sound of the battle. Down the newly cut path I go, high-stepping over stumps and roots, following the soldiers and gentlemen. We all converge on the path cutters. They are yelling and writhing as if they are fighting invisible demons. Henry is hopping, swatting his arms and neck, shouting in agony. There's not a Carib Indian in sight. What is this? Reverend Hunt demands, his voice booming over the cries. What is happening here? Fire, Henry cries. It feels like fire. I jerk my head around, searching the jungle. Have the Caribs attacked and run off? Or is it some strange beast? I hold out my sword ready to fight, but I see nothing. The hatchets are all on the ground. Reverend Hunt reaches to pick one up. No, Reverend, don't touch it. It's Captain Smith's voice. Angry red welts are rising on Henry's arms and neck, on Abram and the others too. To the baths, Captain Smith orders them. That will give you some relief. They take off running, swatting at themselves as they go. It's the manchineel tree, Captain Smith says when things have quieted down. The Caribs use its sap to poison their arrows, and it burns like fire. Our men must have chopped into it. I'm impressed with Captain Smith's knowledge. As a soldier, he has already traveled the world and has learned so much. Tromping up the newly cut path at that moment is Captain Ratcliffe. His face is dripping with sweat. This all happened, Captain Smith says loudly, thanks to Captain Ratcliffe and his ridiculous idea of a gentleman's path. Captain Ratcliffe wipes his brow and scowls. It looks to me as if he would spit in Captain Smith's face if he weren't so overheated. The 2 men stare at each other, fuming. Let's go, everyone. Back to your work. Reverend Hunt says. With a wave of his hands, he gets the men moving. It somehow breaks the standoff between Captain Smith and Captain Ratcliffe. Captain Ratcliffe calls after the men. I want a new crew to cut the path. Just leave those blasted Manchee whatever trees alone. Captain Smith shakes his head and mumbles angrily under his breath. I walk back toward the stack of mess pots waiting to be scrubbed. I carry the sword I borrowed. Captain Smith comes up behind me. That needs cleaning, he says. It startles me. I give him a sideways look. Then I understand he means the sword. The metal is tarnished and even rusting in some places. I will show you how to clean it, and when you return it, the owner will thank you, he says. On the beach, Captain Smith demonstrates to me how to clean the sword with a rag and sand. He says this sand is fine enough to do the job. It is surprisingly similar to cleaning and polishing mess pots. He orders me to do as he has shown me. Then I reach for the rag. Then I stop. What if I do it wrong? Will he beat me, make a fool of me? I lower my hand.
Last week, when I was a baby, and I was at the beach.
It is better to remain unteachable.
And
Listen to the story, Ben. If you will not obey me, Captain Smith says in a low, cold voice, there are other, crueler men you may serve instead. I clench my teeth. Nothing to do but try. I'll reach slowly for the rag again, scoop up sand, press it against the sword blade, and give it a stroke. I forget to be careful. My finger slides along the blade. I yelp, stick my sliced finger into my mouth, suck on the blood. Captain Smith laughs. I cut my fingers many times learning to clean a sword. Let me see it, he says. I hold out my finger. It's still bleeding, but the cut is not so deep that it will stop me from using my hand. Captain Smith rips off a strip of the rag and ties it tightly around my finger. Try again. I look up at him. I did it wrong, and yet he did not beat me. I pick up the rag again. I am careful for my fingers this time. I give it a short stroke, and another, and another. Soon the rust and tarnished spots have turned to shine. They gleam in the late afternoon sun. Captain Smith nods. Good, he says. Now return it to its owner before one of these lazy gentlemen calls you a thief. I run off to find the belt and sheath. They are still laying in the sand. I return the sword to its place. That evening, I hear hammering, and after a while, I go to see what is being built. Have some of the gentlemen decided they need houses instead of tents to sleep in? When I see what it is, my mouth goes dry. A wooden frame, a rope hanging from its highest beam, a noose tied around the rope. Master Wingfield has not forgotten his promise to hang Captain Smith.